to the Dental Hygiene Basics podcast. My name is Dana. I'm your host, and we're excited to have Meg from polish.meg with us here on the podcast. And we're going to have you start with just the basic question I usually ask everybody on the show, which is, how did you get into dental hygiene? Tell us a little bit about your RDH origin story. And I'd also like to know what you're doing up until this point as well.
Well, it's kind of a random story. It's a little silly,
I love
but
that.
I didn't really, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for the longest time in high school. I bounced around a lot of ideas, and long story short, I moved to a new city and I started a new high school, and I needed to pick one more science class. And I was like, okay, well, what the heck do I pick? And so I had all these laid out, and I was like, I'll just do anatomy, whatever. So I picked anatomy and physiology. And I was like, okay, whatever, this class can be kind of lame. I get in, first lesson. I was like, wait a minute, this is awesome. And I was like, oh, I love this. And I just soaked everything up like a sponge. And I did really well in the class. And I was like, man, like, this is kind of cool. So I was kind of thinking to myself, I was like, well, okay, I really love working with people. I'm not sure if I want to be a nurse necessarily, but what's like something I can do in 4 years and, make a good income, help people, and still indulge in this health atmosphere that I kind of started in. And I literally went to my dental office like that week and I was like, I think I'll do this. That was it. I told my hygienist, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go to dental hygiene school. And she went, okay, Megan. And then that was it. And I just kind of like deep dived into it. And it's a little funny because when I was a senior, I had to write a project on what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I wrote this whole project on this English thing I wanted to do. I wanted to go into like technical writing, and I deep dove into that. And then I realized as I was doing that project, I was like, oh, I don't really want to do that anymore. And so when I was presenting this project at the very end, I was like, well, the one thing I learned was there are many different careers out in the world, and you could change your mind. And the people were like, okay. So yeah, basically I kind of just set my mind laser focused on dental hygiene, and I just called the Boise State admission people and was like, okay, how do I get into dental hygiene school? And I'm such a planner, and as most of us probably are. And I just was like, can you lay out exactly what I need to do, get into school? And yeah, I did my 2 years. I worked really hard and got into school in 2021. And that was kind of it with that. I just kind of laser focused, and I was like, this is it. This is my destiny. This is my journey.
I love that. It seems like divine intervention almost. I mean, you take this class, you get really excited about it. You're like, I think this is what I want to do. And then you go in for your dental appointment and you're like, oh, this is everything that I've kind of been looking for. Right.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. Everyone I talked to on the podcast, I mean, some were like, yes, I wanted to be a hygienist since I was, 6 years old. But most people, they were like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, or I wanted to do something totally different. And then next thing you know, now I'm in dental hygiene. So I really love that
Hmm.
part of your story. Thinking through the process, you call it Boise State. Is it Boise State? Is that what you said?
Yes, I went to Boise State for my prerequisites.
Okay, perfect. So you're like, what do I need to do to get on the path? Which is something I recommend to all students. I'm like, the first point of contact should be the dental hygiene school or the school that you're interested, or, how do I get this ball rolling? So what school did you end up going to?
So I ended up going to Idaho State University in
Okay.
Pocatello, Idaho. It is a 4-year school. And so did my associate's degree at Boise State, and then I was a transfer student. And so I finished my degree over there.
Okay. So you did what, maybe like 2 years at Boise State and then 2 years when
Hmm.
you got over there. Okay, perfect. And that last 2 years was all the dental hygiene program. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
awesome. I always like to hear the different paths that people take because some programs are very different. There's some where you can go in,
Hmm.
like your freshman year
Yeah.
and you're already enrolled in dental hygiene school. And I can't even wrap my brain around that
Oh,
because
yeah.
that was not my experience.
Well, now that you mention that, I don't know if anyone's kind of mentioned this pathway to you, but when I was in dental hygiene school, I met this girl, and she had told me that when she was a freshman in ISU, she kind of was on this contract basis where as long as you did really good in school, you passed your test, you got a certain GPA, you had a slot in the dental hygiene program, no matter what. And I had never heard that before, but I thought it was kind of encouraging because in her head, she was like, no, I need to do good because I'm gonna get in this program. And I just thought that was really interesting too. So some schools might have that as an option. I just
Yeah.
didn't know. Really cool.
Yeah. So then when you applied to ISU and to get into the dental hygiene program, was it pretty competitive? Did you have to wait list or did you get in on your first try?
I got in on my first try. I didn't get waitlisted, but there was only 32 slots. And so I don't know exactly how many people applied, but I know that some girls did get waitlisted. So it was a little bit more than that
Yeah.
applied.
Yeah, I was just curious how many people were going in from that start, with that contract, like you said, thinking,
Mhm.
okay, as
I
long as I
know.
do this, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking that's what I would have done had I known that was the
I know.
option.
That's totally a lot
Yeah.
less stress. You're just like, whoop.
Yeah, they're like, here's what
Yeah.
you do, and you just follow that track, and that makes life a lot easier.
Mhm.
So, very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that because every school is a little bit different. And if you're researching schools in your area, those are the questions we should be asking. And my dream world, I'd be
Mhm.
getting to students when they're, 16, 17 years old. But realistically, for me, I don't know how old you were when you went to dental hygiene school, but I didn't end up getting in and starting till I was 25. So a lot happened between,
Yeah.
those years when all that was going on. But how old were you when you started?
Let's see. It was 2021 when I started. I believe I was 20. I was because I got accepted in April of 2021 and then I started in August. So I was just turned 20.
So you pretty much
Yeah.
graduated high school, started your associate's degree, and then
Mhm.
boom, got into dental hygiene school. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Bam, bam, bam. No breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's life like graduating from a dental hygiene program that early and getting out in the career? I mean, because that's just so different than what I did myself.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, my first year being a hygienist as a 22-year-old, a brand new 22-year-old, was I did feel a lot of like pressure to be perfect because of my age. Like I knew that my older adult population and just pretty much anybody over the age of 25 was like, wow, this is a little kid telling me what to do. And I really only felt that with some people, but I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to just, I need to be like super professional and just put together. I eventually let it go, but being that young in general was a little weird. I had a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of that the first year. I almost second guessed myself a little bit. Was like, okay, am I done with school? Like, that's it. Like, I feel like I just started, and now I get to tell adults, like real adults, what to do with themselves. It's so weird. I feel like I just started being an adult myself, and so yeah. To answer your question, it was interesting. My experience was
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
I graduated at 27 and I felt the same. I was like, am I an adult yet? Like
Yeah.
I don't think I became an adult until maybe like 2 years ago. And I was like, I think I'm an adult now. And
Fair
it
enough.
just, yeah, that was at what? I'm 37 now, 35. When you start forgetting your age, then you're like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
doing the adult thing now. But yeah, I think a lot of people experience that imposter syndrome. And so I think that's a
Mhm.
good message to not let that deter you, and
Yeah.
to just keep pushing forward.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just thinking like I can't imagine graduating at 22 and your whole life and career is in front of you, which is awesome. So congratulations
But
on getting it done so
yeah.
quickly.
And not to be discouraging at all. I really do think it was a learning lesson to gain confidence because I didn't really have any coming out of dental hygiene school. I felt like, I feel like most of us, most of the friends that I knew, we came out going, okay, I know this, but now I need to know all of this. And so I
Yes.
think it took a few months for me to like get that confidence to where it's like, no, I do know what I'm talking about. And work with dentists who encouraged me to go, no, Megan, you know what you're doing. You're fine. If you have questions, ask them. And I think it's also not to veer off, but at the same point, like if you work at an office that's not encouraging you and not uplifting you as a new grad, it can be really difficult because I feel like I would have been stuck down here when in reality you need that. You need that confidence boost. You need that positive reinforcement because if I didn't have that personally, I don't think I would be where I am today.
Yeah, I know. I'm so glad you had that support coming out because it does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And, something that I was thinking about coming out when you're so young, but regardless, really, of the age that
Hmm.
you graduate and you start your new career, I always think back on maximizing your education because
Hmm.
in those 2 years, that's the opportunity to learn as much as possible. And I think some students maybe take for granted that school is the time to learn. I think a lot of
Hmm.
students are ready to jump to the next phase and they're like, I don't
Hmm.
really need to listen to my teacher anymore. I don't need to worry. Like, I'm never going to use this or that doesn't matter. But my thought process is the more you take the time to absorb and learn, the more confident you will be having those conversations, because I'm sure you get asked all the time, sometimes like off the wall questions, right? And
Yeah.
it feels
Oh
really
yeah.
good to be able to explain them. But yeah, that's I don't know, a little bit of a segue into your new journey into dental hygiene. What you graduated, what year did you say? 2021?
2023.
You started 2021, you graduated 2023. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
been a couple of years now,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Very cool. So
Yeah.
I want to backtrack a little bit because you got into dental hygiene school on your first try, which I'll give you like a virtual high five for
Woo!
that. But do you remember what your GPA was when you applied?
I was thinking about that earlier, and I think it was about a 3.8. I think it was a 3.85, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, I'm
great
pretty
strong
sure.
GPA. And then what
Something like that.
about dental experience? Any dental experience?
No, I was a weirdo, and I was just like, "This is it." And I just shadowed like one pediatric hygienist. That was all I gave myself. I was like, "I'm good. I don't need to shadow anyone else." So silly looking back at it. Like I still go like, "Megan, why didn't you shadow anyone else?" I don't know. I was just so laser focused. But anyway, yeah, definitely just threw myself in. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it happens every day. People get in with no dental
Mhm.
experience with the minimum amount or maximum amount of shadowing hours that you need. And that
Mhm.
happens,
Yeah.
you have that dedication. Did you have to do an interview or anything like that to get into the program?
My program was a little weird. We didn't do an interview. I didn't have an entrance exam. The only requirement I really had was I had to do a pre-dental hygiene class, which was also a little weird because that was back in 2020 when dental offices were closed,
Mhm.
and I wasn't super comfortable just throwing myself out there, right, into going into somewhere. So a lot of the questions were like, what instrument did the hygienist use to do this? And I did not do very good on that pre-dental hygiene thing, let me tell you that. I think I did very bad because of the time that it was in, but I did think it was helpful. But it's kind of like the only requirement, of course, other than the application. But yeah, no interview. I was expecting one though. It was kind of strange not having one.
Yeah, the more people that I interview here on the podcast, the more I
Yeah.
see we're not seeing as many interviews, I think, as we used
Mm-mm.
to. And I think some of that is just the instructors, bless their hearts, they do not have time. They're trying to do
No.
all of this
No.
on top of educating the students. And then now you're choosing a new
Mm-hmm.
class. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And there is some benefit to not having an interview because you do remove some bias, which is always a great thing
Mm-hmm.
too. But at the same time, I always tell the students when you're being interviewed, you're interviewing the school. So you get a little bit of a glimpse as to what's going on behind the scenes. And that lets you know, is this someplace I'd like to be? But every school is different. Like we said, I think we've already learned some new things about your program and different ways that they can be set up. So I love that. And you got in
Mm-hmm.
on the first try. You had a great GPA. Was there anything else that you felt like maybe made you stand out from other applicants? Or do you feel like, nope, this was my time? It was just going to happen?
Well, there's two things. So when I was applying, I was looking at all of the materials that they let me submit, going, I'm going to put my leadership experience in, I'm going to write my passion letter, like the cover letter. And those were the things that I thought would help me get in, right? I did do quite a bit of leadership beforehand, but I found out that all they cared about was GPA, which was fine, but they quite literally just ranked us in terms of GPA and just let the first batch in. And so, yes, to answer your question, yes, like I had things, but I was kind of disappointed to find out that they did not even care about it. And I was like, guys, what the heck? You don't even know me, you know? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where it comes in with no interviews, kind of like, yeah, there's totally pros with like, not visually, like no judgment. But part of me was like kind of disappointed because I was like, oh, I really wanted to like show 'em my stuff, I was prepared, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
Super
couple
weird, but yeah.
yeah, thoughts about that. Being having been on admission committees in the past, the
Hmm.
thing that was said over and over and over again in these committees is GPA is one of the best indicators for success. If you have a higher GPA, then that means that you can handle the rigors of schools. Naturally, that makes sense, right? But we also know
Hmm.
that there are benefits to things outside of GPA, like leadership or community involvement, depending on the school. It may vary a little. But the other thing, too, and I just want students to hear this because in your case, it probably was GPA ranked, and that's probably where it starts. And that is usually where the conversation starts in those admissions committee rooms. They're looking at the GPA. But sometimes you have maybe three 4.0s and it's like 3.9, 3.8, 3.7, 3.6, right? And then you start to get down into the weeds of, well, we still
Mm-hmm.
have people we need to let in. You don't know what everyone's GPA is surrounding you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had a great, strong GPA, which really benefited you when they're ranking, right? From 4.0 down, like you were right there at the top. But if, let's say, you have 10 people who all have the same GPA,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly now we have to start deciding who out of those are they all getting in, or if we don't have enough
Mm-hmm.
space now, do we have to choose who's getting in from that group? And I think had you maybe had that slightly lower GPA, that's where that cover letter and that leadership experience really would have made a difference. And I think putting the effort in, even just having everything completed and making sure it looks good, says something about the applicant itself. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kudos to you.
Totally.
You did what you were supposed to
Totally.
do. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it had more than just GPA. I'm sure they were like, she's a
I
rock
hope.
star. We know. They
I
already
know.
knew you were ready. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was trying to think if there's anything else, but when it came to GPA though, they really cared about my science courses. They didn't really care about the other ones, and I knew that.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I started college, I was like, okay, I have to do good on my science because that was the heaviest weight out of everything, you know? Like my overall GPA was technically one number, but then my science courses were all, they just did those. And so those were where I focused on most, really. And I'm sure, like back to your point, I'm sure they did look at like this GPA versus this one. And I'm sure they did all sorts of weird stuff, but it's just really important to know too, just for any student that, if you don't do amazing in your creative writing class, it's okay. Don't stress about those. Put your focus on microbiology, anatomy, physiology. I would rather, if I had to tell someone that, like, no, just, what's important. It's important.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. You're bringing up something that I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast before, but yes, we oftentimes schools do that. You have the regular overall GPA and then the science GPA. And if you have a strong science GPA, it really does show that you can handle that because dental hygiene, in case you didn't know, is all science, right? I mean, health
Yes.
and science, that's what
Mm-hmm.
it is over and over and over again with some statistics thrown in your community and research classes. But beyond that,
Yeah.
it's mainly science, which I guess statistics may be considered a type of science. I don't know. Yeah. So, anyways, okay. So you get into dental hygiene school. If you're comfortable sharing, how did you pay for dental hygiene school?
Yeah, totally. Let me look. So I did take out a loan. Excuse me. The total loan that I took out, it was private, unfortunately, but it was a private loan. I took out two, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't know how much each of them were for, but total it was about $37,000,
Okay.
maybe 40, give or take. 37 to $40,000, and then the interest rates combined were about 7.5. So it was pretty high.
Yeah.
And that was also back in 2021, 2022. So for that time, it was really high. I don't even know what the interest rates are now. Just loans, loans, loans. And I definitely had grocery help from my parents, which really helped. So they helped me pay my groceries.
That's
Thank
so
goodness.
sweet. I love that.
Yes. I think I learned how to budget groceries very well because of that, because I only had a set amount of money. So that was very nice. And savings. I saved up all throughout high school, and I worked quite a bit in my undergrad, as in my prereqs when I was at Boise State. And I didn't have much saved, but it was just enough to like get me by without having a job. I did not have a job in hygiene school. I thought about it, but I couldn't get myself to. But there's other girls in the program who had one, and I was always like, "You go, girl.
Yeah.
You freaking go, girl." Like that is hard. It is really tough. Not impossible, but very
I know.
difficult.
Yeah, that's what I always
Mhm.
think. I'm like, good for you if you can pull it off. And there's people who pull it off every single day. I was not that person.
Mhm.
I had little hit or miss jobs here and there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was definitely not going to be holding down anything like that. So I love that you
Mm-mm.
were thinking in advance and you were saving up money, and that takes a big load off, right? When
Yeah.
we think about paying for school, it's not just here's the tuition. It's
Mhm.
also your groceries, your gas to get to
Yeah.
school, the parking, or anything else that comes along
Mhm.
with that, your rent, all those things. So you can't just budget just for the tuition itself because there's also
Yeah.
the miscellaneous fees, right? Like I don't know, did you
Mhm.
have to buy loops when you were in your program?
Well, everything. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I think if I think about it correctly, it was the regular school tuition, and I'm just gonna guess for one semester it was about $4,500, and then it also there's a whole chunk of professional fee. And junior year was the most expensive because we had to buy everything, right? So that was pretty much double tuition. So just one semester, which makes sense when we're talking about 40 grand taking out, was about 10 grand. And
Yeah.
so in total, I just was like, okay, well, 40 grand. Another point too is I did intentionally go to a state school, which was a lot less expensive. And I am very thankful that I went to this school because, yes, it was harder to get into, but it was worth it because I really did save a lot of money going to a smaller school in a very rural town. My rent was only $400 a month. I shared a suite with some other girls who were in school. It was very affordable to live there. And I just am very thankful because the rural community helped me in more ways that we can talk about later, of course, but like just a lot of different things went into making it affordable for a dental hygiene school for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking about now after graduation, at some point you have to pay it all back, right? So you want that
Yes.
amount to be as
Yeah.
low as possible. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on the debt now that you've graduated? Is it something you're thinking about tackling, or are you just like, I've got it on a plan and it'll be done when it's done?
I paid it off.
You paid it off
It's
already?
gone.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my goal. Thank you.
I
I
love that.
graduated. I was like, we got to get this done. I am not
Yes.
paying this. So I budgeted. And what my biggest tip is for anybody out there who has a student loan, that's just about the same as mine. I don't know, lower, higher, but I'd say 40 grand or lower is if you have any savings at all, you throw that on there first and get that interest down because I didn't know this and a lot of people don't know this, but interest gains interest.
Yep.
And as soon as you graduate, yes, they give you a grace period, but that private loan, no forgiveness. No forgiveness. They will just go, "Oh, you don't have to pay me back, but we're still going to make it really high for you." Oh, no. No, no. Just throw as much money as possible and just I really prided myself on like, no, I have to pay this much every month or more. Like I don't know if you ever do this, but like sometimes when I would sub and I'd say, okay, this money's going towards this. Like,
Mhm.
and so I'd sub for a day and I'd say, okay, here's an extra $100 or whatever going towards the loan. And it was really hard, but I just needed to get it done. It was just a high priority for me. And I hope everyone watching this is able to pay off their loans very quickly. Good energy.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, my husband and I did the same thing. Once we were both
Mm,
done, graduated, we paid it off in 28 months.
yeah.
And so I'd like to have that conversation. And I actually have
Mhm.
been very surprised by how many hygienists who have had come on who have really worked hard to get it paid off sooner rather than
Mhm.
later. Because now you have all the money that you ever make going into your pocket. I mean,
Yeah.
disregarding
Mhm.
bills and, those types of
Oh,
things,
yeah.
but it's like
No, still.
you're
Yeah.
not giving that money away to someone else every single month, and so I love that. I'm like, "Woo, I wish, like, yeah, we could have a big celebration. I wish I could
I
drop
know.
confetti on you to celebrate that."
Thanks.
And yeah, I mean, you're 22 years old, you don't have any other responsibilities that I know of. I'm sure everyone has external responsibilities to some degree, but this is the perfect time to prioritize that debt payoff. And then, like I said, you have
Mhm.
all those money making years ahead of you. And now that I'm thinking, I'm like, I think that's why I reached out to you to be on the podcast. Cause anytime I see someone share a story on social media or something that I think is interesting, I'm like, hey, come be on the show. And I think I remember, I think you talked about that a little bit somewhere on socials. And yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing because I think it's really
Yeah.
important for our students to hear. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you get into dental hygiene school. What is the hardest part?
Oh my gosh. At first, the hardest part was fitting in with a group of girls that you are stuck with every day for 10 hours a day that you don't know and you are all stressed and trying to make friends. That was the hardest part for sure for first. And I think that might be a little different than some people might hear, but I just personally really struggled with trying to make friends because I really wanted a community to succeed. And it's really difficult when, you know, you see the same people every day, but maybe you don't necessarily click with a certain group. And so that was my first struggle. And then slowly, as I made friends, it turned into time management. That was hard, but I really got good at that, which you keep for the rest of your life, thank goodness. And honestly, though, finding patients and keeping them in my chair, I think was the cherry on top. That kept me up at night, little vulnerable, but I did have 2 panic attacks for the first time, and I've only had them in dental hygiene school. That was scary, but I that really opened my eyes though to be like, wow, this is not just affecting my my thoughts, but like my entire body. And it's just that was hard. Really, really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a
Mhm.
layered thing. A lot of times I'll ask that
Mhm.
question and we'll get this is the one thing. And that is the question I asked, to be fair. But I really like that you mentioned it was not just one thing and it's not just
Mhm.
one thing at a time. You're entering into a
No.
program as someone who has no dental experience, trying to meet all these new people. And that was really hard for me too. I felt like it
Mhm.
took me a while to get my footing just with friendships. I felt like I
Mhm.
had surface level relationships with the students in my class,
Yeah.
but it took me a while to actually feel like I made good connections with them. And then beyond that, again, because I think I was just like, how do I manage all of this? I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Totally.
So,
Mhm.
thinking about these panic attacks that you had, because I talk a lot about mental health on the show.
Mhm.
I was in therapy, I was on medication,
Oh
dental
my
hygiene
gosh.
school. How did
Mhm.
you manage that when you were going through it?
Oh my gosh. Well, thankfully, at the time I had both of these, which was just by chance. I was with my now husband. I was visiting him for the weekend, and I think part of the reason why I had them too is because I was able to just kind of like think about everything, and he really made it a safe space for me to just feel things, and I think it unfortunately just all came flooding in at once.
Yeah.
But I think it was really scary. I still remember like just laying in bed and I just started hyperventilating and just sobbing. And I remember like I just couldn't breathe. And he was like, What do I do?" And I was like, "I don't know." It was just thankfully, I think the best thing that helped me walk through it was just being with someone that was so safe for me and supportive, because I wasn't scared that I was gonna be embarrassing or weird or like crazy looking. I just felt like, okay, at least I'm in a safe space. After this is over, I'm still gonna be in a safe space. And I think that really helped me just not worry as much. Because if I was with some people I wasn't safe with, I think that would have stressed me out even more. I know like I said, I couldn't control when this was happening, but this was just my experience of just, I was very thankful to be where I was.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you had that as well. I mean, I've talked to students all over the place, and I know students who have had panic attacks in the clinic while we're trying to
Oh
do
my
assessments,
gosh.
and
Yeah.
we're like,
Oh.
okay, calm down, calm down. It's
Mhm.
just an assessment. It's okay. It's just take
Mhm.
that deep breath. It's so hard when you're in the moment. I mean, I get it. As someone who's had panic attack,
Yeah.
it, it's like it has to run its course almost,
Oh
and
yeah.
I've had students who have had panic attacks in the middle of the national board, and things
Oh
like that.
man.
So it's very
Mhm.
tough. And I think, I don't know, did you feel like there were warning signs leading up to it, or did you feel like it came out of nowhere?
Looking back after it happened, I noticed in the times that I was going through these emotions was the most stress I've ever had with one or two single 1 or 2 patients ever. They were very hard to communicate with because they were like special needs or something. So, for example, the most memorable one I had looking back, I think what triggered it was the whole weekend I was at my now husband's house. I was literally thinking about this one patient the whole time because she had a caregiver and also like a med manager, but also a someone who I had to talk through to get to them because she had dementia. But I really needed her to graduate, and I think I was willing to do anything to get this patient done. One, I genuinely wanted to help her, but I genuinely also needed her to graduate. And so it was just so much pressure. And I had a lot of like weird stuff happen with this patient's like caregivers and stuff. And so all of that. And also, this was the last patient I had to complete my first semester of senior year. So without her, I would have had to like be so backed up. So all of that pressure, I think, weighing on me. And plus, I had some other stuff probably going on. And it just kind of broke me really quick. And I didn't really think about it at the time because I was like, "Oh, this is normal." But now looking back, I'm like, "Ooh, that was a lot." That was a lot of stuff going on, Megan. Oh my gosh. So those were mine. I don't know if that helps, but I
Yeah.
guess yeah, that was the most pressure I've ever felt probably in my entire life. Yeah.
I think what you said that really stuck out at me is you mentioned, I needed this patient to graduate. And I also really
Mhm.
genuinely wanted to help this patient. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes you may feel like it has to be one or the other. And really,
Mhm.
it's a mixture of both. And that puts another level of stress on you because you have that like empathetic, you want to care for somebody's stress, that caregiver compassion almost.
Yeah.
And then you have this other where it's like, I really need you to
I
actually
know. Oh my
succeed. And
gosh.
that it really is a ton of stress on the students. And I guess the reason why I asked that is because lately, I've been recognizing that I like to push myself full force to the limit. And
Mm.
there's always signs, if you're waking up at like 3 a.m. and you're just like, why am I wide awake? Or you're waking up and your heart's racing, or you feel anxious just getting out of bed in the morning. For me, those are some signs that I
Mhm.
need to dial back and I need to get some support. And I just think it's hopefully, I mean, you've shared a lot, but I like to think this is a safe space to share those things because I know there's students going through those exact same
Yeah.
things right now, right? So,
Totally.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what advice would you give to a dental hygiene student? Maybe someone, previous Meg, like where she was in the past, the things she was struggling with, what would you recommend?
Oh man. Well, I'd say junior year Meg that just started dental hygiene school, I would definitely say, hey, make sure you're going to therapy. All right. Make sure you're going to therapy every week, first of all, for my mental health. Second, I'd say get your organization locked down as early as possible. And another thing I'd probably say is don't worry about what other people think about you because you're there for you. At the end of the day, you're not there for anyone else. There's no one else bringing you through this program but yourself. So if you neglect yourself, you're going to leave yourself behind and everyone else is going to go without you. And so that's what I would tell my junior year self. On my senior year self, I'd also tell her to go to therapy every week for my mental health. And I would tell her that you're going to be fine. This is a little niche too, but I genuinely think my senior year self, I think I overstudied for my dental hygiene board, which might sound silly, but I stopped doing everything I liked doing to study for about 3 or 4 months, and I regret it. And I wish I could go back and say, no, you need to work out. You need to make your YouTube videos, or that's what I used to do. And you need to read and you need to do all the stuff you love to do. And so I think a lot of people tend to just, rightfully so, place all of their thoughts and all of their energy into this one test. And I totally get it. I've been there. But if I could go back, I would say, hey, Meg, you are smart enough. You do not need to neglect yourself for this test because you're going to pass. And even if you don't, guess what? You can retake it. And that's okay. So that's the biggest tip that I would definitely tell myself and anyone else out there.
Yeah, such good advice and something that no one's ever said on the podcast before. So I'm always really excited when I get to like talk about something that has never been said. But yes, I actually just recorded a podcast about this. And again, a lot of it comes from my own journey and the things I'm reflecting on in my own life, like
Mhm.
pushing yourself to the point where you just forget what you actually need to be a normal
Mhm.
human being, right? So it's
Yeah.
like at the top is sleep, and you need nutrition, and you need water, and you need
Mhm.
a chance to walk, exercise, move your body, right? And then you need quiet time and you need
Mhm.
time to do those things that make you who you are. Like you said, reading or exercise, whatever that is. And it's very easy to get so laser focused that you forget that. And at the end of the day, it really just makes it harder on you, right? On nobody else if we don't take care of ourselves first. So I think
Yeah.
that well, I'm sure it trickles down to others around us. I know for me, when I'm super
Yeah.
stressed, it's not just on me. It's like my husband and my dog are
Yeah.
like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's wonderful advice. I love it. Well, I do like to finish the questions with what is maybe a good memory from dental hygiene school or something that you just really enjoyed about hygiene school?
Man, I loved this is also a little weird, but I loved making a mistake and having a teacher come over and me soaking up every single thing that they gave me and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, I didn't know you could do that," and trying it and realizing that I'm capable of doing it. And there were so many times of this, but I genuinely think that every time I felt like, oh, I got it. Like, this is cool. It was just like, whoa, like so exciting to me. It was just like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is just one memory I had, but I still think about it every single day the first time I discovered that people have veneer calculus, which is where
Oh,
you
yeah.
put air on their teeth, they look totally fine. And then there's a whole bunch of just thin white calculus, right? And it was on my husband's teeth at the time, when we were dating. And I was like, yeah, we're done. And my teacher goes, you sure? Shh. And I was like, oh my God. And they were like, yeah, you got to get all that off, babe. And I was like, okay. And every single day, I do that with every single patient. And I think about that teacher every day. And I was like, man, I'm so glad that I didn't like, I thought that I was done, but then I learned something that I still use every day. And it makes me so happy to this day, not just in
Yeah.
school. It's awesome.
Love that. I know to take something so applicable that you know that you're going to take
Hmm.
away with the rest of your career, you always will spray that air and check for that. And that's what
Yeah.
those moments are about. That's what dental hygiene school is for, is to just keep
Hmm.
soaking up that knowledge. So that is a
Yeah.
fun story. I like that. And really a good tip for our students listening, because yeah, in school, our teachers called it sheet calculus. It lays on the
Oh,
tooth like a sheet.
yeah.
Yeah, you really only see it whenever you spray air on it. But yes,
Hmm.
veneer calculus, I think, is the more technical term. But for
I
some
don't
reason, we always called
know.
it sheet calculus. Yeah.
Either way,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just appreciate you so much for coming on, sharing your story. I know that it's going to resonate with our students. And I would love for you to tell us what you're up to now. And then, of course, where students can find you. Because I know you're practicing clinically, but you're doing a lot of stuff in the social media world as well.
Yes, I am practicing clinically in Idaho still. I am working 4 days a week, which is great. Highly recommend. I am very busy on social media right now. I have a lot of fun videos coming up. I have financial tips coming up, burnout tips. I have videos on techniques that I use and how to speak to a patient to where it makes more sense and clicks in their brain a little better when it comes to certain things going on in their mouth, and a lot of fun PR packages that I've gotten. I love sharing new products. I love like new floss, toothpaste. I love small businesses. And so anything I can share to maybe have someone try something new and learn a little about a small company, I just absolutely adore. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at polished.meg. And my new podcast is called Spit It Out. I just started. I have 2 episodes. The third one's on the way. My third episode is actually talking about something that you and I kind of talked about, which is making friends in hygiene school and how difficult it can be. And so in that episode, I'm going to be sharing my own experiences, kind of like what I mentioned, but a little more in depth and just kind of blabbing my heart out. So I'm sure by the time this comes out, it would have already dropped. So check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. We love it. We love all of our dental hygiene podcast family. It's fun to see it growing, and we all have a unique
Hmm.
story to tell and a different way
Oh,
of
yeah.
sharing things that resonate. So I know it's going to be incredible, and I'm very excited for you. And yeah, thank you so much for being here on the show. And I hope that, your career continues on in such an amazing path, so young. The future is so bright. I'm just excited for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. Really cool to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank you.